I present to you this shovel. It's a very special shovel. It was made by humans to dig holes in the ground and then fill them up again. It is also used for digging out ditches or trenches, which is why we call it a digging tool. It's a pretty big deal. It only has one function though, digging holes. But if you're in an area with a lot of trees or other vegetation that needs to be cleared away, then it can get really heavy work. The military use them for all sorts of things like clearing a path through thick brush so they can move around freely and quickly. They use these shovels to dig trenches as well. But those aren't necessary when you have tanks or aircraft that can carry supplies over long distances. Man, I guess there are some advantage to having these things after all. The handle end of this shovel has a sharp pointy thing on the end that can be pressed into soft sole to make a hole. That's great, but not as useful as its other feature. It is sturdy enough to hold heavy loads. So, if you bury something like an animal carcass, you can dig him up later without having to use any more tools. This is because your digging tool will be strong enough to lift his weight even though he is buried deep underground. Now, think about how you might use this knowledge. You should know that I am always talking about things that are useful. In fact, this is one of my favorite topics. Whenever someone asks me what I want for dinner, I say food. If they ask me if they have food, I say yes. And sometimes I add that I love their cooking. The main idea here is that when I talk about things being useful, it usually means there is some kind of practical advantage. For example, a ladder is useful because it lets us get to higher places than we could reach before. A hammer is useful because it makes it easier to pound a nail into wood or metal. This shovel is useful because it lets us dig holes and fill them back up again. Just like the shovel, everything that I tell you is useful has at least one important practical benefit. Thanks for listening.
Bitch, you are gonna get in this car or I'm popping between your eyes.